Well, as you can tell, it's Green Week on Raider Homes TV.
Lots of green.
Lots of green. We have a subject to talk about, not just colors of our wardrobe.
This is green too, by the way. It's buyer mistake number one.
Number one, that implies there's more than one, but
there will be more.
This is the first one. It's a big one that we see happen over and over and over again. What is that? It's buyers going directly to the listing agent to put offers in. And I know a lot of people are going to watch this and say, what's wrong with that? You guys are whatever. But we firmly believe that it is not in the buyer's best interest to do that.
It's not.
But before that business, we have to talk about the weekly sponsor, which is
Mai Tais.
Mai Tai.
Now that would not normally be my go-to drink or anything, but this recipe, oh yes. My friend that was living in California found a restaurant and they were, I don't know, their recipe is online. So we will post it for you to view because this is something I would recommend.
Yes, and if you don't want to make your own, I would also say as a close second would be Tommy Bahamas. They have a good Mai Tai as well.
It is pretty
But
good.
those are the only two I've actually probably had. I don't know. We don't order Mai Tais that much, so.
Okay.
That would give you a lot of confidence, I'm sure, in our recipe.
It is worth it, I promise.
Okay, so how does this happen? The situation.
So the reason why or how it comes about in the market is, over the last several years, as you know, things have moved online. I mean, homes are sold online, people shop online, right? So when you're starting to think about purchasing a home, where do you go? You get on there, you look at either HAR or Zillow or Realtor, whatever your favorite, real estate, source is. I said a lot in those last couple sentences, But that's where they go. And they start looking. They don't necessarily want to connect with an agent yet. Maybe they have one, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't think they need one. Whatever the reason is, they're just looking right now and suddenly something catches their interest. And well, look at that, let's go see it. Let's call the agent, let's pick up the phone, let's schedule a showing, ta-da, there you are. You're face to face with the agent who's listed the home and you like it. That's how it happens many, many, many times.
And there's a lot of reasons why buyers go this route. I've heard a lot of people, they think it's convenient. It's the number that's there. Just call, don't want to bug my agent, maybe sometimes people say, but a lot of times they don't have agents already. They just call the first number they see. But also I think buyers have this misconception that if you buy the house through the listing agent, that it's going to be better for you. Either they think if you talk to the listing agent, they're going to know all the details about the house and you'll get more information. Or you're going to get a better deal because you're working with the listing agent and there's only one agent involved. But I can tell you that almost always it doesn't happen.
No, it's not in your best interest, and that's what this whole thing is about, your best interest. And that's why we're trying to educate you. Some people would not like it that we're sharing this much info with you. But really what's going to happen in that scenario, if you go and have the listing agent show you the home and you said, yes, let's write up an offer, you might be deceived into thinking that they're also working for you. They open the door for you, they're answering your questions. You say, let's write up an offer. They say, okay, what would you like to write up an offer at? And they might discuss what you would like to do. But really what's happening, and you may or may not know it, some will disclose that to you and you might not know, is that you're not being represented. And this is why. The listing agent already has a signed agreement with the seller. So they're looking out for the seller's best interest. They are actually bound by what they're committed to do that. And if you come in as an unrepresented buyer, it's exactly what you are. You're not going to get the advice and any of the extra help that you would expect from an agent who can walk you through. Now they can be there to do the paperwork. They can be there to tell you what the next step is. And again, you might even have this false sense of them helping you and being on your side. But it's a sticky situation for them to be in because they're not really allowed to do anything but treat you fair and honest, but not really offer any help or support.
And truthfully, as an agent, it becomes really difficult because you're obligated professionally to represent your client, who's the seller, but be fair to everybody. So you're kind of in between, but you can't work for the buyer. You want to be helpful maybe if you're a good person, but it's hard because you know everything about the seller situation, but you can't share that with the buyer. So it's a real tight line to walk.
So really, you want someone representing you. That's the bottom line. As a buyer, generally, you're not going to even be paying for a buyer's agent. Generally, that's worked out through the listing agreement and what the seller has agreed to pay. So it's not going to hurt you at all. And again, it's only going to help you because you want someone there that is looking out for you, who can ask you questions and give you advice, counsel, guidance, do the research, help you know what's fair and in your best interest, and fight for it. Because as you know, there's negotiations throughout the whole process, and you want someone looking out for you to make sure things aren't missed or swept under a rug or anything.
And really think about it, if you go in as an unrepresented buyer in that case, all you're getting is somebody to help you tell you what the next step is. You know, here's the form you have to fill out. You know, we have to get title, etc., etc. Here's the steps. But they're not there to help you necessarily get the best that you can. They can't.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you do that?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense because again, there's no disadvantage for you at all. So choices, if you have been in contact with the listing agent, would be to say, I want to be represented. You can get a lawyer, of course. You don't have to have an agent. Some people just use their lawyer. You can call us, which is what we would recommend, or any other agent that you want, but basically insist that you're going to be represented is what we're saying. It's for your best interest.
Yeah.
There's one other thing kind of along this line, and that's just to explain the term intermediary. You might have heard that, but it is possible that an agent can serve as an intermediary, and many times it's more the broker themselves, the brokerage, who serves as an intermediary. And that means they're not representing either party. So if you have a signed listing agent, then that agent's not going to be an intermediary, and I might be confusing you, but basically you could run into a situation where a seller and a buyer are connected. There's an agent's helping work the paperwork and guide them through this process, but neither one is being represented. The agent is the intermediary. In a situation where, let's say Zarco Properties, that we work under that brokerage, has a listing that agent A has already in agreement with that seller, and we have a buyer we're agent B. I'm gonna get this.
You can do it.
We're agent B, we bring a buyer. So in that situation, Zarco Properties as a brokerage is the intermediary, but it's with assignment. So agent A represents the seller and agent B would represent the buyer. They both are getting represented, and that's okay.
That was some deep technicalities, but...
But it is why you will see it brought up, like on a listing agreement. If you go to sell your house, there is a box that most likely the agent's can ask you to check that says, I agree to having Zarco Properties or whatever the brokerage is be an intermediary. It's not saying that you won't get represented, but that the brokerage might be an intermediary, that they're allowed to have other agents bring in buyers to see your home. That's what that means. But as far as you being represented, that's what today's about. Home buyer mistake. One is not being represented by going to the listing agent.
Yeah. I was just going to explain, like in our situation, if we have an open house for one of our listings and a buyer comes in without an agent, we've had this in the last few months. They like the house, they want to put in an offer, and we're like, you know, we could probably do that, but that's not how we like to do things. So if you want to put in an offer, you can either find an agent, or I can find somebody else that I know is good and I trust.
Yeah, we'd
and
be
you
happy
can
to
work with them.
refer you, right?
Yeah, but we wouldn't represent the buyer as well in that situation.
We're not allowed to represent both parties, and we definitely would recommend that you get representation. So what's the sum up?
Well, basically, I think it kind of upsets me. It makes me kind of sad when I see buyers walk into this thinking that this is good for them for whatever reason, but really they're shortchanging themselves when there's no reason to. Just call us before you go looking for houses and we will get you in there right away as soon as it comes on the market, give you a search that tells you what you're looking for, and get you in a house as soon as possible.
And why you may not have heard this spoken about so plainly, there's a couple reasons. Like for instance, when we do an open house, you have to know that whenever you walk in, whoever that agent is, unless you have an agency agreement with them, is representing the seller, even if they're not the listing agent. That's another subject, but that is good to know.
You are so deep on this stuff.
I throw a lot of info out there for you because I want you to know. But also, if a listing agent brings a buyer in and gets them to move forward either knowingly or unknowingly that they're unrepresented and they move forward, usually that means double commission for them. They're going to get what the seller agreed to pay a buyer's agent.
The listing agent doesn't have to share their commission with a second agent.
Which is why they might not necessarily be super upfront and say, you really, 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 really should go get represented, like we're saying. So hopefully you'll see, yes, there are other good agents out there that would tell you this, but not everybody. So we just want you to know we're looking out for you.
Is that it for Green Week?
Green Week's over.
Green Week is over, but I still have Mai Tai left, so
Yay.
It's not all bad. See you next time.
Bye.